Today, I wanted to spend some time customizing and organizing my iPad Pro. I've recently updated the setup of my iPhone, and as I've been using my iPad Pro more and more lately, I realized that I also wanted to update the setup of my iPad, just to give it a little refresh and delete some things that I'm not using on it. I'll also share some of my favorite apps in this video and how I incorporate them into my life for both work and leisure. So I have the English Lavender Smart Folio case by Apple on my 12.9-inch M1 iPad Pro 5th Gen with the 2nd Gen Apple Pencil. I have it in space gray with the 1TB configuration since the iPad is my main device, my content creation tool. So here's what we're working with. Minimal lock and home screen, kind of just have apps everywhere. There's no real organization or function here aside from my widgets. The best way to do a quick refresh of the iPad is to switch out the home and lock screen, so I went to Pinterest first. I know I want something minimal still, but maybe something purple, my favorite color, so I quickly found one that I love, but once I added it as my new wallpaper, I realized just how low res and pixelated it was. So I basically took to Procreate to recreate it. Lesson I learned here is to probably just stick with making my own wallpapers because it's super simple to do in Procreate, especially for a more minimal look. Now that I have a new vibe from the wallpaper change, seriously, never underestimate the ability of a new wallpaper to make things feel new again. But it's time to make my iPad more functional too. So I'm taking time to go through all of my folders and apps on the iPad and deleting the ones I hardly ever use or don't use enough to justify keeping them on there for as long as I have. Sometimes I'll go into an app, test it out, and see if I want to try making better use of it later, but I really like to have a minimal approach to what apps I keep on my iPad. I want to keep and use the very best. Next, I'm moving all of my apps and folders over onto the second page of my iPad so I can focus solely on how I want to switch up my widgets. I know there are tons of people who have every aesthetic iOS setup, especially with Widgetsmith and all those other fancy cutesy widgets now. And I've tried it and I personally can't do it. I need things to be cute or attractive to look at, but also really functional. So I'm just taking the time here to go through the widget offerings on my iPad to see what I need in my face when I first load up the iPad. I decided to make a smart stack for batteries and email on my iPad because I don't need all of that in my face at once, but I like having those things right there. So a smart stack seemed to be the best choice for that. So nothing much has changed in the way of widgets since that was the most useful part of my previous iPad setup. So I have the calendar at a glance widget, which is extremely helpful, and then the weather alongside it. Underneath is the smart stack for battery levels and email, and then I just have the snip notes widget to write out my goals for 2022. That's literally all that I use that widget for, but I like the way it looks better than reminders or notes, at least for right now. The two larger widgets on my home screen are my favorite Notion pages, and then actually the Files widget since that is my preferred cloud management software and I pay a subscription for it. I'll actually set the folder destination to my business since that is what I primarily have stored on my drive that I access using the iPad. So this next thing that I'm doing is probably being a bit extra and too much, but this is the best way I've found to better sort my apps is to literally just take all of the apps out of their folders so I can better sort them into folders again. Folders that actually make sense for how my mind and my workflow has been lately. And then I'm reorganizing them into new folders. It's kind of hard to explain how I'm categorizing them because I don't have hard boundaries for these apps. I'm just kind of experimenting with how I want them categorized into their folders. leaving out my 4 most used apps though, above the line of those folders, and moving everything to the home page of my iPad once I do have everything sorted. Striving for that 1-page iPad setup. And that's my quick iPad refresh. Not a massive amount of customization because I'm not really into things like that, but I like that it's minimal, it's calming, and it feels like a new device again. So hopping into my favorite and most used apps, Keynote is Apple's presentation software, and it's what I use to create my digital planners, templates, you name it, Keynote is good for it. I organized a lot of the utility style apps into a folder called Utilities for quick access. Stuff I don't use as often, I actually just hid from the home screen. Under my Entertain folder, we obviously got the big streaming apps and e-reading apps, but what I use most is Skillshare, who is the sponsor of today's video. Skillshare can help you continue making 2022 a year of new learning, growth, and connection through creativity. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring and creative classes for anyone who loves learning and wants to explore their creativity. There are a number of skills you can learn on Skillshare, but favorite things to learn are always ways that I can grow as an artist with Procreate or level up my film and editing production to continue bringing you stellar videos here on YouTube. It's ad-free, a major plus when it comes to learning new skills. New premium classes are launching each week, and subtitles that are now available in Spanish, French, Portuguese, and German. So a class I'm currently taking on Skillshare is by teacher Eva Mikles, and it's called Composition for Digital Illustrators, 10 Tips in Procreate. This class is great for making a strong and pleasing composition, arranging and balancing elements in your artwork, and engaging with your audience through art. Through fun exercises and class projects, I always feel engaged when I'm learning new skills on Skillshare. If you want to give Skillshare a try, the first 1,000 people to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. I'll also link my class on creating digital planners if you're interested in learning more from me on Skillshare. So next up, we have the Create folder, which houses all of my content creation apps. iFont is my favorite font app when it comes to viewing my fonts, installing fonts, comparing fonts. There's just a lot of features in that app that makes it the very best. Using the free version of it too, and I haven't run into any limitations with it. PixArt is an app I'll use for more creative photo and video editing. They have a lot of cool, trendy stuff to check out. Magic Eraser was an app I used to use all of the time for getting transparent backgrounds. I've been using it a lot less lately, but when I'm in a pinch, Magic Eraser is there. So I'm still exploring Affinity Designer, but it's a great alternative to the Adobe App Suite because you pay one time and is basically just as good, and it's on the iPad. Pexels and Unsplash are essentially the same, but it's where you can download and use commercial-free photos and videos. I bring up coolers in every What's on My iPad video. It's been like 4 years or something. I just love this app. But it basically makes really unique color palettes. You can export them to Procreate for ease. It's just really good. Check out my other What's on My iPad videos to see this app more in depth, but it's totally worth the download. Animatic is a very simple animation app. Of course, Procreate does have animation capabilities, but Animatic is so much quicker and easier to use, especially when you want to make something quick. Lightroom is what I use to edit all of my photos. I do have presets that I've made and used, but honestly, I stick with boosting exposure and contrast and find that I can get a really great photo with minimal editing that way. Fresco is basically Adobe's Procreate alternative, but offers a few different features that set it apart. And we'll have videos explaining it more in the future, but it's a great app on the iPad. LumaFusion is another popular iPad app for advanced video editing. I still use and prefer Final Cut Pro on my Mac, but LumaFusion is great for Reels and TikToks. And there are plenty of creators using it for YouTube as well. Then I have my notes folder with a ton of note-taking and journaling apps I use and make videos on. And then I have my Connect folder, which again has some pretty straightforward apps here, nothing fancy. And then I have a folder called New with apps that I'm experimenting with that I'm going to let you know later whether I think it has good potential and is worth the download. Lastly, I do have focus modes set up on the iPad Pro, but they come into play more so on my phone and my iPad mini, since my iPad Pro really does serve as my work-only device unless I'm traveling. So having different notifications and pages set in focus doesn't really change up how I use my iPad Pro. Definitely my iPad mini though, so if you're interested in seeing that setup and workflow, let me know down in the comments. But that's my entire iPad refresh setup. Quick, easy, nothing majorly different, but certainly more functional and better to look at in my opinion. So that's the setup and customization of my iPad, as well as some of my favorite or most used apps. If you enjoyed this video, then you'll love my other iPad videos, especially my iPad accessories video that I'll link on screen and in the description for you. Don't forget to check out Skillshare in the description below as well, and if you're not yet subscribed, I share videos like this weekly and I would love for you to stick around and see more. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!